can everyone hear me okay? And also, can everyone see me, including up the back there? You can? Oh, that's so good. Because I'm 56, and in the business world, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, women of my age can struggle to be seen and heard. There is some good news, though, and that is the invisible older woman, she's not a universal phenomenon. And in fact, there is a community that really values older females, our wisdom, our experience, and our leadership. And when they have a choice between an older female or a male to lead, especially during stressful times, they would choose the older female every single time. They prefer not just older females, but post-menopausal female leaders. Now, if you're a midlife woman listening to this, you're probably thinking, wow, that sounds fabulous. How can I join this community where I know my gifts are going to be valued and acknowledged? Seriously, show me, where do I apply? Well, there's just one small problem. And that is, first, you'd have to become a whale. And not just any kind of whale, preferably an orca, also known as a killer whale. Now, we women, I know we're wonderfully adaptable, but that might be just one adaptation too far. But seriously, what's going on with the whales, and why should workplaces care? When researchers from the universities of York and Exeter analysed 750 hours of video footage of these beautiful mammals over 9 summers in the coastal waters of British Columbia, this is what they found. Firstly, that females were more likely to lead the group when searching for food than their male counterparts. Secondly, postmenopausal females were more likely to lead than their younger, fertile females. And thirdly, when times got tough, when their food resources were low, the pod relied even more heavily on the leadership of the postmenopausal female. Now, whales, that have to be one of the most successful and intelligent species on the planet. So there has to be one very clear evolutionary advantage to that kind of social structure. And that advantage is all to do with superior leadership. In whale world, the postmenopausal female is recognised as a critical source of ecological knowledge that's accumulated over a lifetime. And it's the kind of knowledge that now help ensures the survival of the pod. Switch to humans. Where is the postmenopausal female? And why isn't she leading more of our pods? I think it's got something to do with our misperceptions about menopause. I imagine most of you here understand the dictionary definition of menopause. It's when a female's monthly period finally ends. So anyone born with a female physiology will experience this, usually between the ages of 45 and 55, but a good 10% can experience it younger. The time leading up to and beyond menopause can involve years of symptoms. Menopause symptoms, they're many and they're varied, and they can include temporary dysregulation of your body temperature, like, whew, it's getting hot in here, and also of one's emotional state. But I'm really aware that many of you here don't have first-hand experience of menopause symptoms, and perhaps you never will. So just for now, can you think about these symptoms a little bit like sneezing, a natural bodily function that, can be a bit unsightly? Now, like sneezing, menopause symptoms, they're involuntary. They're generally temporary, like sneezing is during a cold or allergy season, and also they're not universal. So 60% of women have mild to moderate symptoms. 20% have none at all, 0. The remaining 20% do have severe symptoms for which there is treatment. But look, these are just a few of the facts about menopause. What I'm really interested in is how have we been conditioned to feel about this natural life stage? Take this from gynecologist Robert Wilson. In his best-selling book, Feminine Forever, Dr. Wilson writes, "The unpalatable truth must be faced that all postmenopausal women are castrates." Unpalatable? Castrates? Sorry, Dr. Wilson, that is not how I choose to describe myself. He wrote those words back in 1966. That's the year I was born. But sadly, a residue of that kind of attitude, it lingers in today's workplaces, as I discovered through my own qualitative research. As one woman who I interviewed said to me, she said, there's an unconscious bias that menopause signals the end, that you're going into the last stage of your career, you're not as sharp, you're not at your peak. But do you remember I said the majority of women don't have debilitating symptoms? And for anyone who struggles, there is a range of effective supports and treatments. The problem is, we women have not been given the talk about menopause. Hands up, females, did anyone sit you down and tell you about what to expect from menopause? One. So because most of us have not been given the talk, we don't know what to expect. We don't know how our symptoms might change over time and maybe even improve. So when we first start to experience symptoms in the workplace, particularly the cognitive ones that might have you struggling to remember things, we internalise those negative stereotypes and fear that, yes, indeed, we have lost our edge, and not just for this moment in time, but forever. That's what happened to me. Here I am, 4 years ago, on the big stage, delivering a keynote presentation at a high-profile event. Now, these events, I normally love them. That year, I was not looking forward to it. And that's because my memory, which is normally laser sharp, had been failing me. I forgot some important meetings. I really struggled to find the right word in conversation. And when I would sit down to write an article, my brain just felt like an empty shell. It had me doubting my ability to keep running my business. And as you can imagine, it had me doubting my ability to deliver that presentation in front of thousands of people. Because you might have noted the detail. There was no lectern. There are no notes. A little bit like right now, in fact. But back then, I started freaking out. And I was freaking out not so much for my health, although I did want to know what was happening to my brain, but for my employability. I subsequently discovered I was not alone. About 30% of women think of quitting or taking a break during the menopause transition. 10% actually do quit. That's according to both Australian and UK research. So are the people in your organisations who are experiencing menopause, are they thinking about leaving you? Because if you're in any kind of business or organisation today, chances are you're worried about scarcity, maybe staff shortages or falling stock prices. Now, as with the whales, organisations that have more women in upper management, they are more successful. So what are you doing to retain your experienced female staff? What are you doing to support them through this transition, which often coincides with stepping into leadership roles? Now, if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what we're meant to do to support menopause at work, goodness me, whatever next, don't worry, I've got some answers for you that I've gleaned from my own research and also the published research. So listen up. Here's the essence of what women say that they would really like from their employers. And that's to name it, reframe it, equip your people, and adjust. So firstly, name it. Every woman who I've interviewed so far has said, yeah, she would like workplaces to acknowledge that menopause exists, that it's a real thing. And many would also like to normalise conversations about it as well, and not as a joke. As one woman said to me, she said, can we please end the silence that surrounds a life stage that half of humanity experiences? And what's really important to understand here is it's not just the symptoms that makes work untenable for some. It's the silence. Because when we don't acknowledge that menopause exists, people try to hide what's happening in their bodies. Can we just go back to the sneeze for a moment? And let's imagine that sneezing wasn't just unsightly, but it was a little bit shameful. Can you imagine the stress of trying to hide or suppress a sneeze many times a day, over months and maybe even years? It's exhausting and a complete waste of energy. because all that's needed to eliminate all of that stress, which ironically can make symptoms worse, is to be able to acknowledge what's happening, to name it. A really important qualifier, though, is name menopause in general, not the individuals experiencing it. As one woman who did my manager training said, she said, "Thea, this is all really great, but do not make me the poster girl for menopause." Number 2, reframe it. Reclaim menopause as a powerful and positive process in a woman's life, another interviewee said to me. The Japanese have a word that they associate with menopause, and it's konenki. Konenki means renewal, because when consciously embraced, menopause will bring up and clear out anything that no longer serves you. And then you're then able to step into the next life stage, less encumbered, more true to yourself, and often with renewed energy. And in that way, menopause serves as a new beginning. It's not only an ending. But you might be thinking, but how can workplaces help with that kind of reframe? We can all help with that reframe, just by the way we think about it. So rather than think about menopause as this just big bunch of problematic, icky symptoms that have to be managed somehow, think about it as a powerful process in a woman's life, which, if supported, we all benefit from. I mean, what organisation is not going to benefit from having more older people, older women available to lead and mentor their younger staff? Number 3 was equip your people. So equip women with good quality information about what they can do to help themselves. And make that easy to find. I sure would have loved to have read somewhere that brain fog was a common symptom of the menopause transition and that it generally resolves. But perhaps even more importantly, equip your managers with the skills to have health-related, sensitive conversations for those women who do want to talk about it with their manager and just explore some simple supports. Now, not all women do want to talk about menopause with their managers, and that's totally fine. Respect that. But some do. And when they do and have a good experience, they tell me just how relieved they feel that their manager now understands what's happening. Did you know that there is research that shows that women who have supportive supervisors in the workplace actually report fewer problematic symptoms? That's not a coincidence. And then number 4 is adjust. Adjust some of those work factors that can impact on a person's ability to take care of themselves and their work as they work their way through menopause. These adjustments, they're simple, they're inexpensive and often temporary, but they can make a big difference. So it could be things like flexible work, working from home, a USB desk fan, maybe some distraction-free time for your most difficult focus work. And wouldn't that be good for all of your staff? Or maybe just a bit of education to promote greater understanding between colleagues. And women, we can adapt the way that we work as well. We don't have to always do things the way we always have. So if you're having memory challenges, for example, recruit a second brain without any shame. Maybe it's a notepad, technology, or just a person to remind you. Or maybe take more regular, short health breaks throughout the day to recover physical, mental, emotional energy. But look, this is the essence of what women say they want: to name it, reframe it, equip your people, and adjust. So workplace leaders, if you think you are at least as smart as a whale, then act like it. If you do these 4 things, you will have a steady supply of women ready to take their careers and your organisation to the next level. But you know that conference I was telling you about? Do you want to know what happened? Yeah, well, I stepped onto the stage and I uttered the first line, which, as you can imagine, I had rehearsed many times. And then a moment of suspended animation, I hear myself say a critical, descriptive word incorrectly. Kabow! And I experience what psychologists call a retrieval error. And that's when your brain, it goes to the right folder, but it pulls out an associated but incorrect word. So my heart sank a little bit, but I just tried to, not miss a beat and keep on going. By the end of the talk, though, what do you think I was focused on? No, I was not focused on that one word, that so-called mistake that my younger self would have ruminated about endlessly. Because when I gave that talk, I felt an embodied wisdom that had me be more in my authority than ever before. And I knew that the quality of my presence was just as potent and needed as the perfection of any recited words. And what's more, I kept perspective. I didn't sweat the small stuff. And I experienced all of that without having to become a whale. Thank you.